it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, as it comes to someone who is a cluster B, are they aware of their problem, or are they aware that they have a problem and it's not always others? In other words, in under the lens of understanding this dynamic, I would have to say unequivocally no. A narcissist pattern, their pathological sense of self-importance and coupled with a lack of empathy, they are prone to have relationships that are known basically to be supply based. In other words, there is something of the relationship that is supplying them with what they need, but it is not healthy, or there is not an equality or give and take. Namely, on the level of emotions, opinions, communication, conversations, ways of looking at the world, strengths, weaknesses, whatever you might consider communication. A narcissist oftentimes will not communicate with others. They will deflect, they will minimize, they will scapegoat, and they will project and create sort of a denial of others' reality, known as gaslighting. And are they aware that they are doing this? So gaslighting is when they sort of deny you your right to your own feelings. You don't feel that way. It's not that bad. You're the one who started this. And any of a sundry other statements that are designed to just not hear from you, your feelings, your opinions, your needs, whatever. That is denying your feelings, and oftentimes it goes down to your human rights. And then this really triggers that brainstem, that reptilian part of the brain, which is very much the fight or flight, which people don't have control over. It's really a subconscious, automatic, unconscious process. So when a narcissist or a psychopath is manipulating others, they are using their defense mechanisms. It's because the way that they perceive others to be challenging or weak is if they feel it does not get them to where they want to go, or does not stroke their ego. In other words, their narcissist egoic needs will only permit them to surround themselves with certain people, places, situations, and experiences that reflect or make them look good. So the narcissist really views others really as an object or an extension of themselves. So if they need something and you are there, they'll just sort of push you out of the way, or create a very combative, conflict driven and argument based atmosphere, which then creates a lot of confusion in others, because this is then manipulating, using these sort of underhanded tactics of manipulating you through guilt, through obligation, through shame. So manipulating you in these ways to shut you down and keeps you separated from your true feelings, what you truly, are needing, what you're needing to do to speak up. And so if they, just basically are going like this, when they're argumentative and conflict oriented and sort of combative, which means it's really a personality style where they just get a lot of rise because they're trying to come out on top or prove who's right. And oftentimes just taking somebody down makes them feel like a champion, the victor. It's an egoic, a narcissistic egoic need. And generally, you can tell because it's very extreme in nature. And it can be deeply traumatizing to others when they are not respected or they are gaslighted, which means, their own feelings are invalidated. You have no right to feel that way. Da 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 da. in other words, all these sort of shutting down of your emotions. This then keeps you separated, and then people oftentimes feel that they can't own themselves or they don't know themselves. They have dissociative disorder, they have self-image issues because they're not in alignment with their needs. They're taught to not only shelve them, they're basically told to put them in the basement, in the root cellar, 30 feet down, and just pat it over so that no one can see it. I mean, you're expected to undergo the defense mechanism of repression, basically pushing your own feelings down, swallowing a lot of crow, biting a lot of soap, if you will, just putting a tourniquet around your mouth so that you cannot communicate, basically, in many sundry ways. So when this sort of narcissist dynamic occurs, I would say to them, they feel that they have every right to be very argumentative and conflict oriented. That's how they get more attention, and then they see the sort of other people struggling. And I think to a narcissist, they sort of have a really sadistic approach when they are trying to see their supply sort of struggling for their attention. They gloat in this. This is like salve to their ego, especially if they have a bruised ego. The more people that can come around and then stroke their ego, the better they feel about themselves. So they're literally like propped up and fed by this narcissistic supply. So, and so if you are then one who is perceived to be weak, or because you don't cater to the narcissist standard of what they need for themselves, it doesn't have anything to do with you and your needs. It's always the narcissist is always trying to manipulate things for an outcome for their own needs. It has nothing to do with you. You can attempt to even speak up your needs, but they will be oftentimes invalidated. You shouldn't feel that way. You have no right. You did that, you did this. You set that up. Why don't you, in other words, you always are the bad person, no matter what you did. It could have been different. It could have been 10 different things, but you would always be the bad guy. This is just oftentimes for those people who are narcissistic, they oftentimes will make a scapegoat and then play this against other people, known as the golden child or the golden one, the one who can do no wrong. And oftentimes, this will be a very painful dynamic that I feel that they oftentimes are maybe at that point not aware of, because it's so second nature to them. That they triangulate, that they split people, that they act divisively, and to kind of, come back. Are they aware? They are not aware. In fact, they will just trump up their efforts when you try to hold them accountable. If you try to hold a narcissist accountable or just have a basic communication of feelings, a narcissist is very secretive. They really do have a very, very frail ego, despite their outer show of ostentatiousness or confidence or whatever it is that they're putting out there that, makes them appear as if they are the force to reckon with, the superior one, the one in control, the one who is domineering and of that mindset. So, for them, this is just how they operate. They feel that they have every right to be this way, to exploit others, and especially where others are vulnerable, they really don't hear or want to hear the other side of the story. They don't really want to hear your viewpoint. That's the whole point of a narcissist relationship. Is they will oftentimes fuel their power or their own ego by invalidating another to prop themselves up. In other words, it's just a way for them to make themselves look bigger than they are. I call it like big hat, no cattle. And when it comes to this, are they aware? They don't really, because of a lack of empathy, they and the way that they manipulate others, they just think that, quote unquote, they are good, they are effective, they are successful, they are wealthy, they are the one who gets all the attention and the admiration. I mean, this is what they crave. And so you can tell that they don't have very good self-esteem because they can't really exist without all these things. So you can really start to see it very clearly in how they set others up to fail from the get-go, especially those people whom they mean to scapegoat and target. And so, in other words, I think it's a very subconscious process that a narcissist will make. In other words, no one else can be, quote unquote, better than me. You can't have this and this better than me. You can't do this and this better than me. You can't this and this other than me. So they have this sort of me filter all the time, that everything is judged as it relates to them. So in other words, no one has really, in their eyes, any right to be other than what that person wants them to be. So you can't be yourself. You can't think differently. You can't have values, because especially if it is, a narcissist is conflict oriented. So they start to fight even when there is no fight. And so they will oftentimes and then isolate people and then estrange them as part of this process. So to them, they're just always sort of doing what they feel is the right thing. But I think subconsciously, they need to take others as a scapegoat, others as a means or a receptacle for projection, really as an outlet for their own insecurity, and then really sort of see and have others do the suffering for them so they don't have to. And oftentimes I think that the narcissist feels that this is oftentimes funny and quote unquote what they get away with. This is what they deserve. And a narcissist, very much like an alcoholic, is always, wanting to get away with something. They always want to get away with something. And oftentimes hurting others is part of what they do to get away with. So making others work for them, essentially, to cater to them, to have others to conform to what they think is right, even if it's not right for you. So they expect this complicit and enmeshment. So, and then we'll try to confuse you as to your own direction, your own needs, and oftentimes blur those for you. So people will then engage in, I would say, a lot of be very confused for a long period of time in the relationship and wondering what they need to do to change, what they need to resolve things, what they need to do to become a better communicator. It oftentimes becomes a never-ending question, or a question that has no answer, because these people do not change. They are very rigid. They are very inflexible. They are, contrary to think they'd be open-minded, they are not open-minded. They are not flexible or accommodating. They do not really let others in. It's just not what they do. If they do, it's to make themselves look good. And if it doesn't make them look good, even if it's something just to be held accountable for, then they will not have a normal conversation. It's going to be fused with all sorts of emotional swords, slaps of, you think you've got reality right, onto you, and then really sort of take your reality, i.e., your own healthy needs, normal perspective, and sort of ridicule you for these, or make these seem shameful, wrong, misplaced, inappropriate, improper, and instead it's to forego these, and oftentimes for very sadistic, oftentimes very cruel and callous reasons, which is really based on control, controlling another, having dominion over another person, which, when you think about it, that is oftentimes very horrific for other people, especially for those who are vulnerable. So when you talk about people who are vulnerable, you're talking about people like children, who aren't able to, maybe go out and earn $1 to bring home the steak at the end of the day. That is vulnerable. You're vulnerable. You just got out of a breakup, and they're this and this and this, and so you're very impressionable. You're very down on your luck. This is when you're hurt, and so they will oftentimes those people who are very, I would say, higher towards the psychopathic, and they don't really have a lot of feelings. Oftentimes they will create a whole slew of negative feelings in others just to see, I would say, almost like what it looks like in a person. In other words, they do it as a way of projection. In other words, they take a certain pleasure in the suffering of others, which becomes sadomasochism. I mean, it becomes domineering, and the very the person who always has to defer to, who has to be very, I don't want to say domicile, but who has to be very domicile to another. There's another word that I'm thinking of, but in other words, where you just have to go along no matter what. In other words, you can't speak up. You just have to be very submissive, and very docile is the word that I'm looking for. So, in other words, then they will be upset for you for being docile, and then you'll be this, and then they'll be upset for you for that. So in other words, you just cannot win. This is deeply traumatizing, especially when they utilize a lot of their own needs to control you, and you then become really just satisfying their needs in a way that is not healthy or comfortable for you. And I would say a lot of supply, at some degree, they would think that the other person would be knowing of what, can't you understand that it would hurt me to cheat on me? Can't you understand that it would hurt on me, hurt to lie about the mortgage? Don't you understand it would be hurtful? And not to shame them, but to, go have that normal, healthy conversation and work through things. Oh, no, 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 no. The narcissist has to be the one to really run the show. They have to run the reel. They have to put in the 8mm film and then stop it when they say stop, and then go when they say go. So your life will become a fit of starts and end and rewind and fast forward, and you're wondering why this is called engineered chaos. This is when they really manipulate your emotions, denying your feelings, denying your reality, denying what you saw. I mean, this becomes really, creates illness and issues, health issues for others. So are they aware that they are doing this? They might actually be hurting others and feel that they are entitled to do this, that they are in the right, to put their leg up. They always have to have the leg up or whatever on others. This is just always how it is. And I think why some people have a difficult time understanding is, do they know what they're doing? Oftentimes because it's so confusing to them, because they have gone through changes to accommodate for them, gone out of their way, to help them, fallen prey to their guilt and helped them. That manipulation. And they cannot understand that the narcissist would not grow or change their ways because they see that it is not getting either hurtful to this other person, which is then in turn hurtful to them. So unfortunately, a narcissist is not sort of looking for that. In other words, they're looking for the conflict to sort of bump them up no matter what, and to create really a distance. Really, I would say with each sort of conflict is to create more and more distance to show you who they feel is in control. And it's the narcissist standards that they feel is always going to be in running the show. So if you don't match up to their standards, or they're quote unquote bored with you, because you're loyal, or because you're just average or normal, and they're bored with you, they will then perceive you as a scapegoat because you are healthy, because you're normal, because you're A, B, or C, or X, Y, or Z. And are they aware of this? I would say that's a really great question, but they feel that this is what they do is what is required or what is needed for them to get ahead. In other words, there's usually some sort of greed or some sort of outcome that the narcissist will engage in when they are conflict oriented like this. So I would say, are they aware that they are hurting others? They really don't feel that they are responsible or care about another's feelings. I would say in those situations, they do not care. And I think for a lot of people who do have empathy, they can't sort of get their head around or understand the fact that this person cannot grow or change in the way that you have accommodated or grown for them. So to understand that they don't have the ability. In fact, if anything, it gets worse and more pronounced with time. So I think that's part of maybe your question is understanding that aspect of a narcissist personality disorder. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Have a beautiful day.